To way to horrify a man is to say, sit down, honey, we need to talk. And then sit directly across from him and like, oh no, yeah, that's panic. They want to run. Yeah. We need something else to do. Then we can relax.
Absolutely right.
Hello and welcome to Real Men Feel. This is your host, author, coach, and healer, Andy Grant. You can visit theandygrant.com to learn more about me. Real Men Feel reminds men that they are human beings and have the right to experience and express all of their emotions. We have conversations that most men are not having, but that all men and the women who love them can benefit from. My guest today is Darrell Williams. Darrell is a member of the White House Communications Agency Hall of Fame. He is also the CEO of Alliance Seminars Coaching, a veteran-owned, faith-based organization focused on leadership, relationships, and purpose. Today, he shares multiple nuggets of what being a good leader truly entails, the importance of focusing on your strengths, and his belief that everyone has something they are great at. Darrell talks about his journey from Compton, California, to working at the White House, and how much passion matters and how little comparison helps us. Let's do it. Hello, Darrell, and welcome to Real Men Feel.
Thank you, Andy. Glad to be here.
You have had quite a remarkable career in leadership with 20 years in the Army, with working in the White House for multiple administrations. Is that the sort of future and career that you foresaw when you were a kid growing up?
Absolutely not. That was not even a thought process. I'm not sure if I said that in my bio, but I actually grew up in Compton, California. So those that saw the movie Boys in the Hood, that's the era that I grew up in. And my brothers and sister grew up in the era straight out of Compton. And that was my background growing up, and had no idea what the future would hold.
Was it a lot of synchronicities? Was it people reaching out to you? Like what got you from Compton to the White House?
So really the first thing it was the military. I ran into a recruiter right after my junior year, leading into my senior year. And I didn't really know what I was going to do, Andy. I mean, I had thoughts like every other 17-year-old, like I'll figure it out, And then I ran into a recruiter, and I didn't really want to talk to him, but he was just so compelling, Andy. I mean, he opened up this book, showed me some prices of what colleges cost. And I think the light bulb went on like, hey, your family cannot afford any of this. You need to figure this out right now. Take advantage of this. And he sold me on it, went home and told my parents, like, hey, I know what I'm going to do after high school. I'm going to join the military as a HR professional, kind of what it is now. But at that time, it was an administrative specialist. And that really just kind of launched me to a career that I had no idea what was ahead.
Did you quickly develop a skill and taste for leadership, or is that something that the military really developed over time for you?
So I think that I had a little bit of it, because one thing I always tell people when I speak at schools is, first person you lead is yourself, right? Making good decisions, not following the crowd, determining that I'm going to be different, even if I'm the first in my family to do whatever. So I kind of had those things inside, but it definitely did not come out fully until I joined the military and I saw these cool guys with all this rank on their shoulder and their starched uniforms and shiny boots. And it was like, I want to be that.
So again, if the first person you lead is yourself, then is it kind of a myth about leadership that it's really about handling other people? It really does start with self-management?
I think it does start with self, because no matter what you do, even in self-management, if you're not walking the walk and talking the talk yourself, you're just not going to be effective. People are not going to follow you, right? They're just going to wait you out because they don't see the sincerity in what you're doing. But if you really are about, okay, I'm leading myself to make good decisions, and now next, you're my next priority. Like, I need to take care of you. I'm not here for myself. Then people, they're going to want to see evidence of that. And when they see like, okay, this guy is consistently taking care of us, he's consistently putting us in for awards, he's standing up for us, okay, he's the real deal.
And was it the military that eventually like placed you in the White House? Was that still in the military? Okay.
It was, because in the military, there's kind of different routes you can go. One is that normal, traditional assignment, right? The Fort Hoods, the Fort Braggs, those type of work. Then there's what they call special assignments, right? And these are individuals that they give you a security clearance. They trust you to be able to, again, be self-motivated, do PT on your own. You're going to go to a place such as the Pentagon or other agencies, and they really depend on you to be a self-starter in a sense.
I know you were in the White House for some pretty critical times. What are some of the biggest lessons you learned from serving at such a high point?
I think one of the biggest things was have being able to adjust to take care of your team. When the president, vice president, first lady travel, a couple of organizations that support them, right? You have the White House staff, right? Keep the schedule, Secret Service, who protect them, White House military office, providing the planes and the limos and things of that nature. But then there is our organization, which was White House Communications Agency. So that means every piece of equipment that the president or vice president touches comes from our organization. So when he travels, our team would have to go out a week ahead of time for stateside trips and then 2 weeks ahead of time for overseas trips. And every time you went out to support, it was a different team, different mission. So I had to learn quickly, like, okay, Andy was on my last trips, good. So I know Andy's temperament, I know what he likes. And then I have to learn these other team leads because I was the second in charge next to a communications officer. So every trip you had, like, within a couple of days, you got to figure out everybody's temperament, their style, how do they like to be led, their strengths, their areas that can be improved. And just doing that every single time, it really helped me out as a leader.
Now, I know from prior conversations that we've had that you've stressed that you serve the office and that no one in your position was really political. We are at such a time of rapid change at the federal government, and a lot of career people that I imagine might be like yourself are being eliminated for cost cutting and things. Does that raise any concerns for you?
It raises concerns, but as a certified life coach, and I work with a lot of different leaders and employees, one thing I coach them to do is you can only control the things that you can control, right? So if your environment is, kind of unstable and you have concerns that, hey, this may not work out, I start working on the individual. What can you do, right? Well, I'm thinking about changing roles. Okay. Where did that start? Right? What does your resume look like now? What do you think it needs to look like? How do we need to tailor that toward whatever industry you want to jump to? Um, Interview skills. When's the last time you interviewed for a job? Right? What can we do to get that? So my big focus with people is helping them understand you can only control what you can control. So you might as well do the best that you can with that.
Okay. And at times when everything feels out of control, is it just, look for that one step that you can take?
You absolutely have to do that, right? Because there's always another step you can take. There's always another move you can make. And then also talk to people and let them know that you can't walk this life by yourself, right? Everybody has a mentor, an accountability partner. Sometimes you may not recognize those roles, but I find that there's always people around you that have your best interest at heart, to care about you, Andy, the person, not Andy, the podcast guest, host. And you got to find in those times, lean on those type of people because sometimes your strengths can be zapped and you got to find a way to get refueled.
I like how you said that everybody does have a mentor and accountability partner. They just might not be called that. So yeah, so because as you said, they're like, wow, that's not true. But then as you explain, like, oh, yeah, so that I appreciate that. They don't have to have a certification or been assigned to you
Mhm.
from some program. They're just naturally in your life.
Absolutely. And it's amazing when I ask people questions because I never give them the answer. I help them figure it out on their own. When I start asking, like, for example, when's the last time your life was chaotic? And then they'll quickly bring up a moment. And then it's like, tell me about that moment. Okay, got it. Tell me some of the things you did to get through that moment. And as they're describing it, Andy, they start realizing, wait a minute, my neighbor pitched in a lot. Hey, the local community pitched in a lot. People came and babysitted for us, and we felt like, right, we didn't have any energy to take care of the newborn anymore. And then they find out they had this whole village there that it might not have been called a village, but the people were there. They were in place. So just like that can happen for a family, it can also happen for an individual.
As you were rising up through the ranks compared to now, were there the same kind of misconceptions about leadership, or have they changed over time?
Oh, they have definitely changed over time. When I joined the military, Andy, the drill sergeants were king and queen. You didn't question authority. You just kept your mouth closed and did what you had to do. And then when you got out of basic training and ART and went to your normal units, it was the same thing, right? Whatever the leader says, you just do it. And then midway through my career, you started seeing a different caliber of soldier come in, right? They asked questions. They were already educated. And what I found was the older supervisors that I grew up with, they looked at that as insubordination. How dare Andy ask me, why am I doing this? You're doing it because I told you to do it. But I found out that the people were changing. So it wasn't that they didn't want to do it, they just wanted to know why. So I had to easily adapt my style to the new people that I was leading. And I would have more meetings than I would used to have and say, hey, tomorrow we're going to do this. Here's why we're doing it. Here's the consequences if we don't do this right. Here's all the people that we will let down if we won't develop this new skill and master this new piece of equipment that we have to, bring into the workspace. Andy, once they understood it, they were like, got it, Darrell Williams. It makes sense. What can I do to help? And then it was up to me to say, well, you're pretty good in electronics. So why don't you take that manual home tonight? See if you can read up on some things. And then when we come tomorrow, it's not just me teaching this, but I want everybody's input. And that's when you started finding out the leadership style of just do it, do it, do it. It was good for that time and it's good for certain scenarios. But bringing in that team concept of, hey, Andy, what do you picked up as we were looking at this equipment? What did you notice, right? What are some ways you think we can employ this? And getting in that team concept and that team buy-in, it wasn't just me making them do it, but we all had a invested interest in it.
So it sounds like it was a lot of your own resilience and adaptability. This wasn't like the Army realized, oh, when we send out new orders, we're realizing people are changing. We need to change. So this was your own experience. How supported is that? Did you get sent? Did people notice you and go, that Darrell's doing things a little different and weird. I'm not sure if this is going to work. Or did you just trust your own instincts?
So I just trusted my own instincts. And again, I started leaning on those mentors that I had and said, hey, here's what I'm noticing. Here's the difference in the teams that I'm leading. And those mentors were fantastic because, Andy, they were forward thinkers. Like they challenged me and said, hey, what if the military is changing and you're in the middle of this change? How can you get ahead of it? How can you take advantage of it? Right? How can you take what you learned and then when you go to your next organization, when they have the standard, we call leadership development programs, LDP, right? What if you volunteered and led some of these sessions and brought in some of these new tools and new skills? And that really challenged me instead of just saying, well, they're old timers and they're not going to get it. It was like, hey, let me tell you what I'm noticing. And what are you noticing? And a lot of those old timers, like, you know what? I did go off on a couple of these young whippersnappers thinking that they were, not paying attention and realizing like they were just inquisitive. So the more we develop the space for people to talk about it honestly, instead of, carrying this macho image of no matter what, the Army's not going to change me. No, 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 no. The Army still needs you. And those young leaders need to hear your experience. All they want to know is instead of you attacking the hill, it was, why did you attack the hill? What would you have done if the hill was a little more slippery, right? And what did you learn from attacking the hill that you wish you would have known? So it was just a different style of leadership, but the same leadership was still required.
Right. And the end result, the goals weren't changing. It was just how are you going to get there the most efficient way, it seems.
Absolutely.
Cool. Now, I know in your current role as a mentor and as a coach, I've seen you talk about maximizing your call often. Can you tell me what that means to you?
Absolutely. A lot of times I used to go to the schools and talk, and I would ask them, most speakers do this, what do you want to do when you grow up? Or, what do you see yourself doing? but I would change it based on a lot of times they don't know. So you end up stuck with all this empty space. So I changed it, Andy, to more of, and I do this with the adults. What do you find yourself good at? What comes natural to you that makes you feel really good? And when people start saying stuff, Andy, like, man, when I get, a hammer or tools in my hand, I just feel like I can create anything. Like, okay, hang on to that thought. Get ready to run with that. Somebody else says, man, I love just taking a computer apart and then trying to figure out how to put it back together. Okay, hold that thought. What about you? Man, I used to hang out in the front yard with my dad, watching him take a car apart and then him explaining to me what each piece does. So basically, what I would do is challenge their experiences and say, why do you think that memory came right away? You didn't even hesitate. And what they found out, Andy, was that's what they were passionate about. So I try to help people identify their passion right away. And then from there, it's like, okay, now how do we pivot to your passion? What are some things? What are some tools? What are some training that you can do to kind of get to that level?
And what are common blocks that people struggle with to identify their passions or their purpose?
Oh, wow. One of the biggest things, Andy, is they compare themselves to others. It's like, man, Andy, he's selling his podcast and, he got, 1,000 shows in 3 months. Like, I don't know if I can do that. Well, Andy has a different approach. So instead of trying to copy Andy's approach, what do you think your approach should be? Right? What topics do you want to talk about? How do you want your podcast to be different versus trying to copy somebody else? So I think the biggest thing is helping people realize don't compare yourself to others. Learn from others, admire how they do it, right? And then when you talk to the Andys of the world as you're trying to walk into this new industry, ask the Andys of the world, hey, what did you learn in the beginning when you started doing podcasting? What were some of your early challenges? All right. How did you have to pivot, from guests that just, tricked you and got on there to talk about their book versus what they really were supposed to talk about, which is real men?
All right, I'm gonna put this on you, my friend. What did you learn? What did you discover as you were initially going out into the speaking world?
So one of the biggest things I had to find out was you got to tell your own story. You got to find, because that's one thing I'm finding about all the different speakers. I get ready to start and I'm studying all the different speakers, looking at their topics. And it's like, oh, I can talk about that. Oh, I can talk about that. But then when you realize if you do talk about that, from what perspective are you going to talk about it? So instead of trying to mimic a Les Brown or a John Maxwell, even though I truly love leadership, I found that I had to talk about leadership from my own experience. And the more I did that, even going back to Compton, where people would say, how did you not join a gang, right? How did you not get caught up in the selling drugs? And then I just started talking about the leadership around me. Like I had a couple of guys around me that we didn't want to do that type of stuff, right? So I had to make a conscious decision. And it's funny. It's almost like when guys would come to you and say, hey, got this plan for you. You can make some fast bucks. And then I would kind of be witty with it, Andy. I'll say something like, well, I get that. I appreciate that. But you know what? I'm going to go a different route, right? The same energy and the passion that you have for selling that, I'm going to see if I can use that energy in a different way. And they were like, oh, wow, that's all right, young buck. Okay, I respect that. So it wasn't me putting them down or trying to like, oh, taboo. It's like, no, 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 no. You have a plan. Your plan is different. But guess what? You still have motivation. You still have drive, right? You still have intellect. You're just using it in a way that you don't realize can be used in a total different opposite way in more of a positive manner. So instead of me, talking down to those guys, I just kind of flipped the script and told them, I like your ingenuity. I'm gonna see if I can use that in a different way.
So it sounds like you were already quite a mentor at age 17.
I was trying because that's one thing you learn growing up in Compton. Like you don't want to be a smart aleck, you want to be a know-it-all, right? So I found really one thing I would do is I would always kind of study people and find out what they were good at. Like here's a great story. I had a guy that was one of the leaders of the gangsters. He would come to class every now and then. And when he came to class, especially our math class, Andy, the guy was genius. He sit in the back. This is back in the day, so we write on the chalkboard, and the teacher already has the answer and basic or the formula, and we had to figure out the answer. And I got all my paper out, Andy. I'm trying to figure this out. 2x times 3x is this. Carry this, and then the guy that's the gangster was like, "Oh, x equals 5." Just like that. No writing, no anything, Andy. And I'm still doing it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, X equals 5. Like, dude, you should like totally come to class and make all of us look bad. And he was like, no, no, I know what you're trying to do. I'm not coming to class. That's not my thing. I'm just coming because I don't have anything to do today. But just trying to find that one thing about that person that they're good at and just complimenting them and reassuring them like, hey man, you got a lot going on for you. When, not if, but man, whenever you get a chance to change that thing around, man, you're going to be just amazing. And people would feel like, wow, that's the first person that didn't talk about me because I was in the game.
Mm, cool. Does everybody have something that they're good at?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've talked to people, Andy, that says, Darrell, you don't know my childhood, right? My dad left my mom. My mom raised all three of us. I didn't have a true role model. Okay. Maybe you didn't have the role model that you thought you needed to have, but did you play sports? Oh, yeah, that's what saved me. Like, really, how? Oh, coach was this, coach was that. He taught us discipline, he taught us ethics and all this good stuff, sportsmanship. I was like, but you were a pretty good athlete. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was good. I was decent. Like, so there's something tangible about you being a great athlete and you not giving your mom the problem that you could have gave her. Why didn't you do that? Oh no, there's no way I could do that to my mom. She sacrificed so much. I had to, do things the different way. I had to grow up faster than I wanted. So guess what? That tells me that you have the ability to adjust, the ability to pivot, and the ability to deal with circumstances that most people would crumble under. Once you ask them those questions and they see it for themselves, they come back and say, you know what? I am good at something.
Darrell, are there skills today that everybody really needs to develop, regardless of what their calling might be?
I do think so, Andy. And I think one of them has a lot of different terms. Some people call it emotional intelligence. Some people call it soft skills. But either way, the ability, right, to just pay attention to people, right? Sometimes as leaders, one of the biggest mistakes we made is we try to make mini me's, right? I'm going to make, a young Andy. And it's like, yeah, that's fine, but the world already has an Andy Grant, right? How about you just be Andrew, right? And whatever's inside of you, just let that grow into what it needs to be. And I think the ability to just listen to people, hear what they're saying, hear what they're not saying, right? And then help guide them to whatever it is that, they're looking for.
Do you have any daily habits, routines, or rituals that have really helped you kind of stay on your path?
That's a great question, Andy. For me, I'm big into music. So when I wake up in the morning, try not to wake up my wife too much, but I always play a lot of positive type music, more up tempo because I'm not a coffee drinker. People are like, oh my gosh, how could you be in the army 20 years and not drink coffee and not smoke? I'm like, because I just wanted self motivation, right? I wanted to be able to do things a little bit more naturally. So that way it wasn't controlling me, but I could control it. So for me, it's, morning devotion. I might not do it every night or every morning, but, I do something. Definitely playing positive music in the morning just to get my, spirits moving and, up tempo. I'm hype. I'm ready to tackle the day. And I think what you said is good. Everybody could benefit from some type of morning routine, regardless of how big or how small it is. And the key is what you said is just doing it consistently.
What is your definition of success?
Wow, great question. So for me, I believe, honestly, that success is you maximizing your potential, right? To do something great. Not assigned to a dollar figure, but if a dollar figure happens out of that, that's okay too. But I just think maximizing your potential to do great things, to me, that's successful. And I say that when I think about, my twins about to graduate, I'm looking at all these teachers, right? My kids, there are certain teachers they just love, they're passionate about them. The average world, they look at a teacher and say, oh, they're not successful. They're just teaching. But the way they inspire, the way they allow these kids to grow and feel like they can conquer the world, to me, that is success because you maximize your potential, which is to be able to develop young minds, to be able to motivate people, and to have them feel confident in themselves. To me, that's success.
Is there one thing that you wish more men knew?
Yes. The biggest thing that I wish more men knew is you don't have to go it alone. Gosh, Andy, so many of us feel like, oh man, if I call Andy, he's going to think I'm a wimp. If I call Andy, he's going to think I'm less of a man. I'm not going to call Andy. I'm just going to figure this out. And then you don't realize Andy, man, went through the same problem you went through last year. And now Andy can't wait to help somebody else and say, hey, let me tell you about um, teenage daughters, right? Man, they're trying to stretch and find themselves and run faster than they have to. But here's what I learned raising my teenage daughter, right? I had to give her a little space, right? I had to take her on more dates and we just talk. It's not me just drilling into her, but asking her questions and, why do you feel that way? What are some of your friends? What's some of the challenge that you're having? And giving them that space. And we can get that from talking to other men. There's no rule book out there that says men have to figure it out on their own or they're failures. It's just not true. The truth of the matter is we're stronger together. And the more men we surround ourselves with, that we can have that honest conversation and just say, hey, I'm really going through something. Can we talk next week? Absolutely. Because men are different from women, right? They can just, get on the phone or whatever and just start that conversation. For men, sometimes we just need to go out to dinner. We need to go maybe on the basketball court. We're not really playing, but we're really talking while we're playing, those type of things. And I just think most men just need to understand you don't have to tackle every challenge by yourself.
Yeah, and one tip this has been shared in past multiple shows, but yeah, it's easier for us to get in the flow of our heart and the flow of open communication when we're doing something else. So yeah,
Yes.
be it sports, be it a puzzle, be it just out walking, but the way to horrify a man is to say, sit down, honey, we need to talk, and then sit directly across from him and like, oh no, yeah, that's panic. They want to run. Yeah, we need something else to do. Then we can relax.
Absolutely right.
What moment in your career are you most proud of?
Man, gosh, very good question. I think for me, it was when my mentees would come back to me and say, hey, I just want to let you know that I got promoted. I just want you to know that I was selected for promotion. I just want you to know that instead of getting out because things were tough, I re-enlisted and I got the assignment that I wanted. It was just seeing the joy and the success from others. To me, that was way more important than any promotion that I ever received, any award that I ever received. It was just those other people realizing that I wasn't just blowing smoke, right? Like, no, you really are good. Like, you really are great. And if you continue to path, keep finding the right people to surround yourself with, you're going to surprise yourself. And for those individuals, and then for them, they even found me, Andy. Like, in the military, you move around a lot, and sometimes it's hard to find people. Like, those individuals would find me. And the first thing they would say is, you probably don't remember me, but I was the guy that used to fall out of formation when we were running, and you would always encourage me, just don't walk, just follow behind and just build up your endurance that way. Like, and I would remember those individuals like, yeah, I remember you. Like, tell me what's going on. And just to hear their stories, they're family men now. They're doing great. Couple of them, they got ranked way even higher than when I retired. And I just told them I'm proud of them because, my job was never to keep you below me, just like any, real man. My job is I want you to go further than me. And then I want you to go grab somebody like I grabbed you. And then that's how we reciprocate that cycle of building better men.
That is something that I certainly did not grow up hearing from leaders that, yeah, I'm leading you and I want you to surpass me. If I feel like you're almost really talking about how you talked so highly about your daughter's teachers, like, so you were always teaching more than, again, traditional Army leadership as I would, my distorted view of it.
No, you're exactly right. And I think as men, and that's the other thing we can realize that it's okay for us to evolve. A lot of time, what I find, Andy, is men mimic what they saw when they were growing up, right? So if I didn't have a father in the home, whatever that closest thing was, negative or positive, I mimic that because I believe that's how you do it. It's not until we get into these non-traditional life patterns that I call it, where you're introduced to a coach, right? You're introduced to that wise neighbor that just comes and just, hey, come cut my grass. And then while you're cutting his grass, he's talking to you, he's asking you questions, and you're like, man, I get a lot out of just the money from that guy. Like, he drops a lot of wisdom, right? So I think just being around other men, and then us realizing that we can evolve. We're not meant to just be the same. That's why life situations always happen to us. I think instead of us, Andy, looking at woe is me or what's next, I think the better question we should ask ourselves as men is, what am I supposed to learn from this? And then the second question is, what lessons can I remember so that I can share with somebody else that may have a similar situation?
Yeah, those are powerful questions, and they can be scary to ask and sit with, if you really think it's all up to you. But if you have your team, your accountability, your support, your mentors, it gives you a much safer place to explore. What am I missing? What should I be learning? Why does the same thing keep happening to me?
So true. So true. And a lot of times I tell men, they're like, I heard what you were saying, but I'm still in the same thing for the last year. I'm like, so what if there's a lesson there that you're skipping over? You're looking for something big and it's really something small. And then when they go back and they think about it, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's it. And they figured out on their own, they realized the answer was there the whole time. They just kept telling themselves, Andy, no, it can't be that. That's too small. No, that's really it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's another trope of being a guy. Like, I was always thinking, like, each time I had some business venture or launched a book, whatever, like, this is it. This is the home run. And it just never was. And finally, in like meditation, I got like, what's wrong with a career full of doubles and triples? Like, you don't need nothing but home runs to be a success in whatever you're doing. So yeah, those small things they do matter.
Love that. That is so true. Again, we have to question, okay, here's the environment I grew up in. And yes, the person that I looked up to in the neighborhood, they would get home runs all the time, but I'm just not built to get home runs. That's just not me. So I'm more of a base stealer, or I'm more of a defensive player. Again, find out what you're good at, maximize that, and don't worry about trying to be the next, this person or that person. Just be you.
Awesome. Darrell, what's the best way for people to find out all the things that you're up to?
They can reach me on Facebook, Alliance Seminars Coaching. They can find me on website, allianceseminars.org. Also on Instagram, Alliance Seminars Coaching as well.
We were joking before we really started the show that this has been a long time coming. We've had multiple starts and stops. I held space. I knew this would happen, and I'm really glad that you made the time. And yeah, I'm really I don't even know what to say. Like, I can sense your pride in helping others kind of discover their own pride, and that's really cool. Like I said, you have a lot of aspects of leadership that just aren't that common, and I thank you for doing all that you do.
No, Andy, thank you for being patient with me because, again, when I saw your show title, I was like, I want to be on that show. It's like when you have a certain type of things happen in your life, it's like you can't just go to the grave with this stuff. It's like, man, I need to share this with others. I don't know who it'll help, even if it's just one person. That's why I love, love, love what you're doing, because there's some men that may not get what they need to get in the traditional way. But man, if they come across your podcast and they go, man, this dude, Andy Grant, man, I like the topics he talks about. I like the people that he brings. And then they start looking forward to who's Andy going to talk to next. So what you're doing is really life-changing for men. And I just want to encourage you to keep doing what you're doing.
Oh, yeah. I've stopped, and then the life says, no, you can't keep stopping. So onward and upward. But yeah, I appreciate you making the time for us, and I appreciate everyone that's joined us and listening. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Please visit realmenfeel.org and see the blog post for this episode, which will have all the various links and resources discussed. If you're not living your life to the fullest, I invite you to book a free clarity call with me. We'll explore what you want, what's in your way, and what you can do about it. Visit theandygrant.com/talk. And until next time, be good to yourself.